if you have an operating profit margin of 20%, it means you're making 20 ngwe, which is 20% of 1 kwacha. 20% of 1 kwacha is 20 ngwe. So yeah, making 20 ngwe operating profit for every 1 kwacha in sales revenue. Okay. Yes. So operating profit, remember this is the profit before interest and tax. Okay. So here the mechanics are the same with the gross profit margin. Okay, as you can see here, if your sales revenue outgrows the operating profit, you have a drop in this ratio. Okay, the sales revenue, let's say, grows by 50%, and your operating profit just grows by 5%. Your ratio will drop. You'll be making less operating profit for every sale. Okay. But if your operating profit margin increases, let's say by 50%, and the sales revenue increases by 5%, your operating profit margin will increase. Okay. If your sales revenue drops, colleagues, also this is another aspect I never mentioned when we look at gross profit margin. If your sales revenue drops and your operating profit increases, okay, whichever has got the big change will affect. So if the sales revenue drops greater than the increase in operating profit, the ratio will actually increase. Okay. When this denominator drops, this ratio actually increases. Okay. So sometimes these ratios can also be misleading. That's why you need to do a deep investigation. Okay. For sales revenue can drop. Okay. If I make the operating profit, it drops at a lower rate. Maybe both of them drop, but sales revenue drops more than operating profit. You're going to see that your operating profit margin will increase. Okay? Now, if you take that for face value, you say, oh, the operating profit margin has increased, but if you investigate it, so operating profit dropped, and sales revenue actually dropped way more than operating profit, then it's actually somehow bad for the company. Okay. Yes. And remember, operating profit, which is I also put as PBIT, profit before interest and tax, it's just your gross profit minus your operational expenses. Your operational expenses, the selling and distribution expenses, admin expenses, okay, the depreciations, the utility bills, okay, those are your operational expenses. Okay. So when operating profit margin drops or increases, apart from looking at the increment or decrease of operating profit or sales revenue, we want also look at the operational expenses, because they can also tell part of the story. Because if our operational expenses increase, okay, what happens? Our operating profit, we can expect it to lower down. Okay. So, and if the operational expenses drop, our operating profit, there's a possibility it can also drop. Okay. Also, if your gross profit You always want your gross profit to be its growth to outpace the operational expenses growth. Because if your operational expenses outgrow your gross profits growth, then you're expecting this ratio to drop. Okay. So the next question I should pose is, how do we reduce these operational expenses? What are we? Okay. Yes, colleagues? What recommendation would you give a company in lowering its operational expenses? One operational expense is electricity. Okay. Electricity is an operational expense. Okay. So, as a business, depending on what type of business it is, load shedding can have a bad impact in terms of increasing operational expenses. Because you find no electricity, it means now we need to get generators. Okay, and those generators, let's say for example you're using a diesel generator, now your new operational expense is going to be fuel. Okay. Maybe if you get solar hasn't got a lot. It's just it's mostly expensive when installing, but if you get solar, maybe yes, switching methods. If you get solar, you can find that you can actually lower operational expenses. Okay, because solar, like this electricity, you don't need to buy units every day. Okay. Yes. So that's why load shedding, you find in a lot of these companies' financial statements, you are going to see load shedding was a big influence on the operational expenses of the companies there. They never had electricity, they have to use alternative methods, which are now more expensive, which are driving up operational expenses. Okay. So in such a scenario, what a business can do, try to switch to alternative methods like using solar, okay, or maybe locating to a place where there's a readily supply of electricity. Okay. But it's really a hard operational expense to control because this one's on a national scale. Okay. Yes. What are the operational expenses, colleagues? Because remember, when you're interpreting these financial statements, you have to look at all these views. You see the selling costs have increased to or even advertising costs. Okay? They're going way over budget. You can cut them. Okay? Advertising costs are also a high operational cost. Okay? Rent, even factory rent or office rent, that can also be part of the operational expenses. You find the rent is increasing at a high rate. Now it's affecting the operating profit. Because as a business, so you need to go and rent somewhere else. Okay. Even the distribution costs, okay, is part of your operational expenses. You can find cheaper ways to distribute your product. Okay. If the distribution costs are increasing at high rates. Okay. Those are some of the operational costs that you can talk about and how to take care of them. So it just all depends on the financial statement that you're given. Okay. You will see which operational expenses are listed there and you'll be able to tell and say, okay, this expense has been growing. Okay. Trend analysis. Remember, trend analysis, when you're looking across these years, you have to see, is this thing growing? Is it dropping? How is it performing? So if you do a trend analysis and you see, oh, operational expenses, the trend here is they keep on increasing. Then you have to find out, okay, how do we lower these operational expenses? Okay. And also remember, the cost of goods sold can have a trickle-down effect on the operational profit, because if the cost of goods sold takes a huge chunk of the gross profit, it means the operational expenses are going to take the remaining chunk, lowering the operating profit. Okay. So that's why management of the cost of goods sold there is important, so that there's enough gross profit left over to cover the remaining expenses. Okay. Because if there's less profit left over, your operation expenses erode that profit more. And let's say you're a public traded company, you find now you can't even pay out dividends. Okay? So these things also affect shareholders also. Okay? Because if this margin is dropping, okay, it means the net profit is also going to get affected, and that's where the shareholders are getting their money.